It's time now for the Success is Subjective podcast. Here is your host and therapeutic consultant for young adults only, Joanna Lilley.
Hi, and welcome to the show. Today, my guest is Jenney Wilder. With a fantastic case of ADHD and a cornucopia of learning disabilities, Jenney Wilder, Masters of Science in Education, is the producer and owner of allkindsofTherapy.com. You'll hear about her journey from being born and growing up on the Yale campus to moving across the country and how she finally landed in the great state of Maine. Her story is all over the map, both personally and professionally, which is why I appreciate Jenney carving out time during the short summer season in Maine to share her story with me. Let's not wait any longer. Here's my interview with Jenney on today's edition of Success is Subjective. I have Jenney Wilder as my guest on today's episode of Success is Subjective. Jenney, thank you for carving out some time during your summer in Maine to do a podcast interview with me.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. I'm super psyched to be here. I'm glad I finally got called up to the majors.
You didn't just get called up to the majors. I'm literally putting you out at bat. So let's go.
Let's go.
Okay, so I know some of your story, but I really am just excited to ask you really targeted questions that require you to answer things outwardly for the public to hear. So let's just dive in. Where did you actually grow up? So where'd you grow up? And then what were you being told that you should do or are supposed to do after you graduate high school?
Well, I'm going to start with where I was born, so it'll fill that second question in. I was born at Yale New Haven Hospital. I was originally supposed to be Reunion Wilder, and then it was Graduation Wilder, or vice versa. So basically, college was never a question. I spent the first 6 years at Yale University, where and that was the 70s. So the students partied like rock stars, and we can go into that on another podcast. But I had what I perceived from 0 to 6 as about 500 people who knew who I was. So my brother and I were pretty depressed when we left the college and moved to the mean streets of Chevy Chase, Maryland, where there was no all-you-can-drink chocolate milk and cereal at any meal, and 500 people who knew who I was. So then I grew up walking to my elementary school and could not read. I was one of those kids who couldn't read and faked it in school until about 5th grade when they gave me that test, the one test I couldn't get away with. And that's when the wheels started falling off. But not really, because I'm a girl. So I was really good at managing the expectations. So that is how I grew up, and then went to public school through 8th grade, and I always thought I would go to boarding school like everyone else in my family, and then ended up in a day school in Washington, D.C., talking about wanting to go to a small school where the teachers actually knew me. And then I think it was 9th grade when there were 6 kids in my math class. I was like, oh, this is not what I wanted. All my skills are gone out the window. There's no more multiple choice tests, where I was the kid in the multiple choice test filling out like the little test bubble in middle school. So, or to say that it was the master copy and screwing everyone's Scantron tests up. We didn't have that at the independent school I went to. The teachers actually knew my name and didn't test me in multiple choice. And I had like the public school kind of wired. I was one of those kids who had a lot of fun in middle school. And so went to a great small school in DC where after freshman year, they tried to, they informed me that I should probably repeat 9th grade, which they were absolutely right. I forgot to mention I had to go to summer school before going to this school because the gig was up. I couldn't read or write or do math. And that was my first sales and marketing event. And I looked at the head of school and various other administrators and my parents and said, no, that's not an option. What do I need to do to get out of here? And they said, well, we've got this really cool summer school program. You could do that and take some credits in the summer down in Florida and do marine biology. I'm like, no problem. And they're like, and you could do summer school in the French Alps. We've got that. I'm like, great, no problem. Sign me up. So I graduated in 4 years, much to the surprise of everyone. But those summer school programs that they had at my school were pretty pivotal educational experiences for me. They were hiking in the French Alps, pretty amazing, skiing, but also going to class at night and living above the tree line and hiking 3 days a week and skiing twice a week. And I did not grow up with outdoorsy parents, and I was totally at peace. And the same thing, marine biology, we were in Sanibel Island, RIP Sanibel. And then we were there for a month studying marine biology class during the day in the water in the mangroves, and then evening class writing and reading amazing literature and living with about, I guess there were 4 or 5 of us in the condo. It was amazing. The D205 condo. I mean, the fact that I can remember that condo number is amazing to me, and kind of changed who I was at that point without even realizing it. Played sports all through school to heavily medicate the wonderful ADHD I have. And then by senior year, my school was so wonderful, they gave me my own special math class. We're like, you know what? We're not going to do what most kids are doing right now. You're just going to relearn the basics of math.
Oh my gosh. Jenney, I had no idea.
Yeah, it's a crazy educational story because, I mean, talk about getting out by the skin of your teeth. I did it. And so I really thought that because I had all these learning disabilities, that I really needed a school for kids with learning disabilities. So I applied to a bunch of different schools, ended up, and this is the part I don't generally say and is not on my LinkedIn account. I attended school in West Virginia my first year and was not a very, I was a great student, which for me was incredible because that never happens as far as my narrative had gone, and drank far too much. In fact, when I finished my freshman year and my grades came home, because my school ID, because I'm that old, was my social security number, my dad was like, what's your social security number? I mean, he couldn't believe the amount of A's. Neither could I, for that matter. Anyway, so I transferred schools to Wheaton College in Massachusetts, and I was not playing sports in West Virginia, which I should have been, but it was a D2 school, and I was not interested in, I was more interested in smoking cigarettes and drinking beers. So by the time I transferred to Wheaton, my mom was like, you're going to play soccer, at least try out. And I walked onto the soccer team and played soccer for 3 years there, which was very good, but you could see my grades go down every spring because there wasn't as much required. Mm. And I have to say, halfway through my freshman year, I called my parents and I said, I'm either going to need therapy or an Outward Bound course. Something's got to happen. And they said, let's try Outward Bound first. And I don't like to give my parents credit much, but I do have to say that after freshman orientation, after making far too many poor choices in a 72-hour period, and I called my parents and said, this is not the place for me. Insert a bunch of expletives. My mother, to her credit, said, we got you through this process the first time. Call your college counselor. We're on vacation. You and your brother are finally at college. And so I had to navigate visiting colleges, figuring it out, all sorts of fun stuff, which meant I was FedExing a lot of applications 2 days before they were due.
Wow.
So, yeah, I mean, being a Gen Xer,
different world.
Yeah, exactly.
Different world. Like by the time your daughter grows up, she's gonna be like, you mailed in applications? Like, that's unheard of.
And, I should have been a kid. I was so afraid not to go, to take a gap year. And gosh, I was the perfect candidate. I mean, for all intents and purposes, I had basically a junior college experience remotely. I mean, it was the first time in my life I was outside of the Beltway and realizing that I wasn't stupid and that there was a world outside. I mean, I didn't know this at the time, but like most people in the DC area have at least a master's degree, which is just not typical, right? And I've grown up at Yale. My grandfather was a trustee of Yale. My great-grandfather went there. Like, it's ridiculous. Education's the only thing that my family, truly values, and writing. When I told my parents at one point I wanted to be a social psychology major, my mom said, "What's that?" Needless to say, I didn't choose that. I didn't have enough guts at the time. And then I became a history major because the history department partied pretty hard. And my brother told me I was a kiss ass.
Oh my gosh. I had no idea about some of this stuff.
I mean, there's so many layers to this. So many layers. I mean, much to my surprise, I got a master's in special ed, and my lovely, amazing aunt said to me, and she probably has no idea she said this, "Okay, so what's next? A PhD?" And it hadn't even been 5 minutes. And I looked at her, I go, "It's a bloody miracle we're here today. Let's just celebrate it."
Like, do you know who's your read the room? You know your audience, right? Like,
yeah, but it's just, I mean, my mom has a PhD, my dad has a couple masters, that's what my family does.
Oh my gosh. Well, you carved your own path though. So you did get a master's in special ed, but what did you end up doing after you finally got that degree?
Well, so before I got that degree, I had a whole other life in Silicon Valley. So that was kind of my accidental experience after college. I traveled around the country, moved to the Bay Area because my idea of a job was to hike, bike, ski, and sail in the same weekend. And that seemed to be the only place I could do that effectively. And when I told my parents that I wanted to do this, my father's response, "This is so bad. This is..." Well, I was in the Yale Club in New York last week, and one of my classmates said that all young people are living out there right now. So it seems like everyone from the East Coast is going out there. I was like, "Oh, okay. So the Yale Club says it's okay."
Oh my gosh.
Anyway, I ended up in Silicon Valley. This is how old I am. I answered an ad in the Yellow Pages for my first job. And they didn't care who my family was, where I went to college, or anything. It was great. Then my training was like, "Here, set up this little set-top device, and then we're going to put you on the phones tomorrow. So figure out how to explain what you're doing." I mean, talk about experiential learning.
Whoa, yeah.
And I had only used email like 3 times, but they were hiring I was answering the phone number at 1-800-GO-WEB-TV. So this was internet on your television, which basically gave grandma email and porn on your sofa for the first time.
Oh my gosh.
With dial-up. So anyway, that's kind of it. And then I was there for 5 years, worked at 3 startup companies that all got acquired by various people. And really cool, smart people, problem solving. I loved the creativity. I loved that anything that people dreamed up, it was implemented and created. And the last company I worked for were the people who ended up starting Android. So like super flipping smart people.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. So I laid myself off from that career. I got to tell you the lead story here because I can't bury it. So my brother died by suicide when I was living out there. It was about year 4. And the CEO of the company answered the phone because there were only 10 of us. So when you pressed O for operator, you got the CEO. And he put me in a room and by myself, he knew before I did, and sent me back to DC. And so that kind of sent me on a path for obvious reasons of like, what am I doing? And at that point, I was thinking about going to business school. Talk about deviating from the family plan. And so he was amazing. And the company was amazing and just kind of sent me back east. And then I came back to the West Coast and I had my own office, and I looked at my best friend Kira to this day and I'm like, did I get my own office because the engineers don't want my energy and my emotions?
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So anyway, I stayed there for another year and then traveled around and then ended up moving back east and going to grad school. So.
Well, and it sounds like, just because I know where you are now, but to really fill in the gaps of teeing up to that, going off to grad school, getting your master's in special education, that's such a different trajectory, especially based on what you described from your own academic or educational experiences, also being a product of academia, because that is, truly, especially with, some of the people that we work with on the East Coast, your legacy is sometimes the letters behind your name, and that it's just such a different world.
Yeah, totally.
So fill us in then from getting your master's. Well, why did you get it in special education? So give us a little bit of the backstory of the decision making there, but then thread us through what were some of the jobs that you held, because I also know that you're no longer living in the Bay Area. So obviously you moved at some point, but get to the point of what it is that you're doing now, because that's going to be the big spotlight. And it also really it demonstrates the marrying of all of your personal and professional experiences.
Well, and the lead story here is ADHD has been the gift, not the curse I once thought it was, and the dyslexia and thank goodness for Grammarly and spell check. And so, after getting diagnosed with everything under the sun and a little bit of this and a little bit of that, with a flair for the oppositionality, my favorite line, which I now try to use for good, not evil. When I left California, I moved back to DC after traveling around the world for a chunk of time. And I was actually moving out of my apartment in San Francisco as 9/11 was happening. So this is now a year after my brother died. So it was boom, boom, boom.
Yeah.
This is life. And then when I moved back to DC, I took another consulting gig in tech, and they were easy for me, but not fun. And it wasn't, I always wanted to work with kids. I used to, at that wonderful school, I used to volunteer in the kindergarten. I used to coach a 2nd grade soccer team. I volunteered in as many classes as I could because I realized learning for me was very much outside the classroom. Also, little kids don't judge.
Truth.
They're great. And I always loved the kids when I was working at these companies. I'm want to hang out with my colleagues' kids more than I wanted to hang out with everyone else. And so I was walking through a park in Bethesda, Maryland, and ran into one of my soccer coaches who was the head of the upper school, who was a consultant in Washington, D.C., and that was Peter Sturdivant. And walking through the park and with a friend, and he was like, "What are you doing?" And my friend quickly says, "She needs a job." At that point, I was going to work with my friends, what does a producer do? It's bring your friend to work. And then I started volunteering at some schools in DC, all over. anyone who would have me in their classroom, I was like in. So I was thinking, okay, I'm going to go back and become a teacher. And Peter said, as he was watching his kids play soccer, who are now, one of them's a father, hey, I just bought this consulting practice from Ethna Hopper. Do you remember her? And I did, because Ethna's son and I went to high school together. So now you're getting the picture that like Washington, D.C. is the smallest town. And I knew it because when Ethna would travel, her son would have parties, and I knew the parties. And I also knew that when everyone got thrown out of school, they went to talk to her. Or they wanted to go to boarding school, they went to talk to Ethna. I mean, it's all full circle. And my college consultant shared office space with her.
Wow.
So I knew what consultants were. My brother at one point even met with Ethna, with my dad. So I knew sort of what this was, but I didn't, except that I knew a lot about schools because, remember, it's in my blood. Private schools, independent schools, you name it.
You know it well.
And yeah, and so I ended up working there just answering the phones. And I was like, well, I'm going to go to grad school, I think. And he was like, great, just work here part-time. I was loving it. And applied to 2 education programs and 1 master's in social work program. The education program was 1 year, and I got, they said I would be on academic probation because of my test scores. And I said, but it's only a 1-year program, and can you check out my grades and my transcript? But they didn't care. And that just, I was like, are you flipping kidding me? And then I got into a school in New York City called Bank Street College, which is a totally teaching school only. And, my application there was a 10-page essay on why I wanted to become a teacher. They didn't care about test scores. And I'm like, my people. Turns out we have a few family members who have gone through the school. The genes are all right there. And had an incredible experience, got waitlisted at the social work program. And I was like, okay, I'm moving to New York. I'm going to grad school. And it ended up being, honestly, 2 years of educational therapy.
Wow.
And the school, because New York City has 1 million kids in the public school, I got to see so many different types of education. And for better or for worse, work with different populations. And it was kind of mind-blowing. And after the first year, I was driving back down to New York. I had a month off with my dad. And he was like, well, maybe Peter will want you to work with him. And I was like, Dad, are you crazy? Like, no. Consultants have different degrees than what I'm going after. And then like a week later, my dad called me and was like, Peter's trying to get in touch with you. And I'm like, in my head, as the insecure woman, I was like, what did I fuck up a year ago that he's calling me about now? It's all right there, right? You are who you are. The narratives play out. And so he and I spent the better part of that year kind of talking about what it would be if I came back to school counseling group, because Ethna was going to be retiring, and me getting to work with Ethna and get trained by her, which was like, as far as I was concerned, the golden ticket. I loved working with her. She's a friend, a colleague, a mentor, another mom to me now. I love the woman to death. And she also is so direct. Sometimes I couldn't handle it, and I needed to. And it was amazing to work with her. And that's what I ended up doing. But it took a long time to figure that out, because in my mind, I was going to, probably move to Brooklyn and work at this public school in downtown New York. And I never wanted to move back to DC. I pretty much said I never wanted to live there when I graduated from high school. I was like, forget it. I'm out of here. So that's it. And I worked there from 2000 until 2012 when I moved to Utah because my then fiance, now ex-husband, lived in Utah and owned a treatment program. And he had a daughter from his first marriage. And so we went out there to be a family. And when he wanted a divorce, I wanted out of Utah. And we all got what we wanted. And then I got to move to Maine.
You're living your best life in Maine.
It took a long time. I mean, I always have wanted to live here. I've kind of not mentioned that, but every time something went wrong, all roads led to Maine. You know, when my brother died, my whole family and I spent a month up there just crying, and I was rebuilding rock walls. Like, just, so I've always said my soul was here. It just took me a long time to get here. And now my kid, you know, is one of these people that I grew up with who's like thinks rain is okay and snow is even better with ice on it.
Yep. You're living your best life as a mom in Maine.
Totally.
Well, and so let's go back. What you haven't highlighted is what you're doing now.
Right.
So let's put a spotlight on it. So once you left the school counseling group, you were out in Utah, but then you left. And then at some point there in between, you launched a company.
All kinds of therapy. Yeah. So basically, when I started at school counseling group, we had the worst flipping database in the world. Because it was only as good as the information that was put in. It was a fairly big practice. They did, you know, boarding schools, day schools, little kindergartners, college, you know, and then this therapeutic world was kind of bubbling up. And I couldn't believe, having come out of Silicon Valley, so it's like 2003 when I'm answering the phones or something, that there was no place to go compare programs side by side, or the way you can with computers and laptop, you know, and phones. And I was like, but these families are... So I kind of put that in the back of my mind. And then several years later, a friend of mine and I were going to start an iteration of what we did. And we met with a bunch of people at a conference, and they were like, you can't do this ethically if you're a consultant. And it was like, ding dong. So set that aside. And when I moved to Utah, much to my surprise, and I think this just happens in the water in Utah, I got like insta pregnant much faster than I expected. So I was just consulting out there as a solo practitioner, because the magic of school counseling group was being under the same roof. And so I became more and more pregnant pretty quickly. And the more pregnant I got, the less patience I had for the families. And then my daughter came along, and let me be more specific. I always loved working with the kids. I struggled with the parents. And I'm like, here I am, a senior citizen mother in Utah, because I literally was a senior citizen mother. I had friends who were becoming grandmothers at my age. And I couldn't kind of get over that. Here I was watching what I was eating, exercising, and like boundaries seemed to be so fluid with these families. And at that point, I was working with families who I was working remotely on the phone, and I would go hang out with their kid at different programs, like wherever they were. And I loved that part. That was like the best part. And I also very quickly learned that living in Utah, I knew more about the programs than I ever knew living in Washington, D.C., even though I was in Utah all the time. And so in the back of my head, this website thing's happening. I'm kind of seeing how prolific the treatment industry was out there. I mean, I knew it was everywhere, but I really didn't know it was everywhere until I moved there and driving my stepdaughter around. And I'm like, hey, that's a treatment program. We would drive to her friend's house. She's like, Jenney, come on. I'm like, they're everywhere. It's like, that's a dual diagnosis program for, 25 and over. It's like,
they are everywhere.
They are everywhere. And and in fact, my ex-husband grew up down the street from a program. So when he took me to his childhood home, I'm like, hey, that's a program. He's like, are you kidding me? He didn't know. I mean, it was after. Anyway, too funny. But they were everywhere. And then she was born, and one of my clients ran out of a treatment center and got hit by a car, and luckily was fine. But holding her in one hand at a couple weeks old, and she had to go back into the hospital right after she was born. So I'm just totally out of sorts at that point. And I'm holding her in one hand and my cell phone in the other. And that was the moment. That was truly the moment when I was like, so this is my emergency, the small person, the mini. And I don't want to be beholden to these people. And I knew I was a mother who needed to work. Let's be clear.
Yeah.
And so I started literally with my daughter, like started going to meetings with people I knew and saying, here's what I'm creating. Like, what do you think of this? With like pieces of paper. And everyone was like, oh, we just want to meet your daughter. And I'm like, no, I'm really here to talk about this. And so I ended up launching that. Probably it took me like a year to launch all kinds of therapy when it was all said and done, with maternity leave and all. And so it's over 185,000 visitors a year. And I was actually looking at stats late last night, and the newsletter has about 10,000 people and had a 40% open rate this month, which just like, because the last time I checked, it was like 26, almost 30%, had gone from 26 to 30, and then all of a sudden it was 40. So with a huge click-through rate, my mind's kind of blown. And so much has changed since I launched that. So that was she was born in 2012. That was like 2013, 14, when that kind of started happening.
Yeah.
And so, so that's what I do now. So my daughter is my emergency.
Well, so thank you for sharing all this. I'm going to ask one final question, which I feel like is the perfect ending point to the whole story of how we got to what it is that you're doing now. And I should also say, a little side note, links to all kinds of therapy will be including email for Jenney, will be in the show notes. So reach out, sign up for the newsletter, check out the website, because what she has created truly is the only standalone side-by-side comparison resource for families of young adults or adolescents that are looking for not just programs, but professionals to provide support for their child or for the parents themselves. So definitely check out the site. But I digress. Jenney, last question. Now that we've heard your whole story, somebody who was literally born in Yale, so I can just I'm breathing in this air of prestige and the expectation and vision for what you're supposed to be like. And then fast forward to who you are, right? Which I'll refrain from what I think about you, but you know it, right? Do you see yourself as successful?
No. I mean, I'm still, at the end of the day, and I say this all the time because I'm related to famous writers. It's like, we're downwardly mobile. The gene pool has been blown to bits. My father, when he got my SAT scores, my father was in admissions at Yale. I mean, this is one of the best lines a parent can ever give, right? This is a man who worked in the admissions office at Yale right after he graduated. And he has his own learning stuff, but was really successful at Yale. And he looked at my SAT scores and he goes, they're so low, they're interesting. Don't take them again.
Oh my gosh.
And he, then went on to explain, right, that any school I was going to apply to, because we knew I wasn't going to an Ivy League or a baby Ivy or blah, 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 that they were going to look at my test scores, meet the human, because I was going to be interviewing, and the two things did not align. And, but it's a great line that he plopped out with. They're so low, they're interesting.
Oh, Jenney, I wouldn't change a thing about you.
No, thank you. I'm right now, I feel exactly the same way, but the little narrative in the head's always funny.
It's always there. Well, thank you again for carving out some time to share your story. I mean, again, I'm going to have to sit with this because I feel like there's so many things that I didn't know about, like your childhood, your path to where you are now. And I just appreciate you being willing to share that. And yeah, thanks again. Enjoy your summer in Northern Maine.
Thank you. Thank you very much for all you do. Check you later.
That's it for this week's Success is Subjective episode. We want to thank our guest for joining Joanna on the show this week and for being willing to share your journey. This podcast would not exist if it weren't for people such as yourself. Stay tuned for our next episode, where you can bet it'll be another amazing human sharing their personal story with the world. Make sure you check out the show notes, where you will find contact information, website details, and all social media for our guest. If you're interested in being a guest on the podcast, you can email joanna@lilleyconsulting.com. Be sure to check out the lilleyconsulting.com website for additional resources outside of podcasting. Now, if you're listening to the show on Apple Podcasts, please subscribe. And while you're at it, feel free to leave a review. You can also download to listen to the Success is Subjective podcast on other popular podcast apps, such as Audible, Google Podcast, iHeartRadio, Spotify, Stitcher, and TuneIn Radio. Thanks again for listening in, and remember, there is no single path through life. Success is what you make it.
Do you have a teenager or young adult who seems to have lost their way? Maybe they need help navigating adolescence, adulthood, and decisions surrounding higher education. Or maybe they have become withdrawn, their grades are slipping, or they are flat out living a reckless lifestyle, and you're concerned about their health and well-being. If this describes what your teen or young adult is facing, a therapeutic consultant may be able to help. Mental health, addiction recovery, and higher education can all be equally expensive. While information is everywhere, how do you know what option is the best one for your family? Some parents have the time to research and navigate this on their own. Some don't. If the latter applies to you, enter therapeutic consultants. Therapeutic consultants, like Joanna, listen to your family's specific needs and advocate on behalf of your loved one. TCs will research therapeutic resources, recommend treatment programs, and assist during adulthood transitions. Not being affiliated with any program, their support is completely objective and catered toward the best interest of each unique family. To find a qualified therapeutic consultant to work with, check out TCA, also known as the Therapeutic Consulting Association. Their website is therapeuticconsulting.org, all one word. Again, that's therapeuticconsulting.org. Then click the Find a Pro tab up at the top.